What's up, Funkheads? Time for another top 10, and this time it's top 10 Batman Funko Pop repaints. I know a lot of people like to complain that there's way too many Batman repaints, that it's just Funko milking the same cow over and over again, but I actually like the repaints. And it's actually a traditional thing with vinyl toys and collectibles as it is. Like if you look at a lot of vinyl art toys, it's usually the same mold, just repainted in different creative ways. And I kind of view the original Batman mold in that same way. I kind of see it as a collectible vinyl toy that gets repainted a lot of times, the old school way like every other vinyl toy company does. If you really look into it, there are way worse offenders of repainting the same mold over and over again than Funko. Funko only does it to a few of them, and of course Batman being the one that's repainted the most. Another reason that I think it's really cool is that Batman was one of the first Funko Pops. A lot of people think he was the first, but he really wasn't. So let's talk a little bit about that. There's a little bit of confusion as to what was actually the first Funko Pop, because there is no first Funko Pop. The first Funko Pops that were all released at the same time, so you can't really say there is a first. There was a metallic Batman, a blue Batman, a metallic Batgirl, and a glow-in-the-dark Green Lantern. These were in 2010 for the Comic-Con, and what makes it even more confusing is that these exclusives were actually released before the common. If you look closely on the Batman box, Batman is colored in black, where the Funko Pop here is blue. It wasn't until a couple of months later after the con that they actually released what we now know as the common Batman, the #1. That's in black and gray with just the bat symbol with no yellow around it on the chest and a yellow utility belt. The original Batgirl and Batman that were in these clamshells that were called Funko Force actually didn't sell very well, and a lot of them ended up getting repackaged into actual pop boxes. So yeah, there's a little bit of confusion as to what was the first Batman, what was the original, because yeah, the common is the original, it's the same mold, but he was released after these San Diego Comic-Con variants. Before I get into the top 10, I have some honorable mentions. Entertainment Earth put out a bunch of multicolored Batmans from this comic where Batman was wearing multicolored suits to distract the enemy from Robin. And I kind of like the pink one the best, just because it's so different. The blue one just kind of looks like a normal Batman, and the other ones aren't as silly as like pink. And if you look closely, Robin is saying he's wearing a red Batsuit, but I don't know. To me in the comic book, that looks pink, and that's probably why they made this one pink. I think another one that really stands out in the collection when they're all together is this negative Batman, because it's just really weird. I've never read the comic, but somehow in the comic, Batman turns into like a negative man, so light damages him. It's very bizarre, but here's the cover, so you can see Funko got it pretty accurate. And this isn't just some weird repaint that a designer came up with, it's actually rooted in the comics. And as we get deeper into this list, you're going to see that Batman has had some really weird costumes. I think this Thrill Killer Batman is really cool as well. I like the combination of black and red. And this is from a comic book that takes place in an alternate reality where Batman is actually a detective and becomes Batman after seeing Batgirl and Robin in action, I believe. It's not too flashy, it doesn't stand out too much, but it is pretty cool. Many pop collectors seem to really like the Blackest Night Batman because he was from a big, huge story crossover arc where the central villain resurrects all these dead heroes. So that's why they look like zombies. And it was a very popular story, so I understand why this guy is popular. But to me, he's kind of ugly, and I think he could have been done a little bit better. But he still does look very cool and is very different from all the other Batman repaints. And it still just is a repaint. But that's why I like the repaints, because it's the same old sculpt, but you can make them look very, very different. Now on to the best of the best. And remember, it's my opinion. And I think with this list, especially since they're all the same sculpt, it's going to be very subjective. It's like asking somebody, what color is better, red or blue? Well, depending on which color you like most, that's the one you're going to think is better. So remember, it's my opinion, and you can also leave what you think the top 10 are in the comments down below. I think this silhouette Batman looks awesome. He's basically all black, except for his utility belt, the bat symbol on his chest, and his eyes painted in a glow-in-the-dark blue. And it doesn't seem to be rooted in any comic storyline. I think the inspiration came from some of that DC art that's kind of like all the heroes in silhouettes with their different symbols kind of glowing. And they also made variants of the rest of the Justice League, and they do look cool all together. But I definitely want to add this one to my collection for my Batman Repaints collection. What I like about the Professor Radium Batman is how intense his glow is. Usually I don't like when they make glow-in-the-dark pops look exactly like the commons, except for with parts that have glow-in-the-dark. But this one looks nothing like the common Batman. He actually looks radioactive. And I've never even heard of Professor Radium. I had to look up on the internet who he was. He seems to be one of those forgotten Batman villains. And I really couldn't find any images of Batman actually wearing this outfit in the comics. So I'm not sure if in the storyline he donned some kind of radioactive suit to combat this radioactive villain or what, or if it's just inspired by the villain and they call it Professor Radium Batman instead of just calling it Green Glow-in-the-Dark Batman. This is where we're getting into the really weird territory with the Zur-En-Arr Batman. And in the comics, this has got to be one of the ugliest superhero uniforms I've ever seen. It's just really weird, and it's a really kind of ugly combination of colors. The story is about Batman all of a sudden being like on a different planet, and the Zur-En-Arr Batman is actually like an alien that has been monitoring Batman and is kind of imitating him, but this is the outfit he came out with. And at the end of the comic, Batman doesn't even know if he was dreaming or if anything was real or what the hell. But I gotta say, I do like the way it looks in pop form, because again, it is very different, and they did a good job making it look like the actual comic version while still using the same mold. The box for this just says Batman, but this is the 1989 Michael Keaton, Tim Burton version of Batman. The movie that made Batman a little bit more serious, because at the time he was just very goofy with that TV show and the Super Friends. But this was a little bit of a more serious Batman, and if it wasn't for this movie and its sequel, we probably wouldn't have the Nolan Batmans that we have now. But as you can see, the utility belt isn't exactly like the one in the movie. The cape isn't exactly the same. The ears aren't as long because it is just a repaint, but I think the yellow bat symbol with the yellow belt with the all black suit is pretty iconic, and it does look pretty awesome, and that's why I put it on the list. Here's another one that isn't based on anything from the comics or the movies or the cartoons. This is just basically a Halloween Batman. Officially, it's known as the Harvest Batman, even though it just says Batman on the box. But to me, it very clearly is inspired by candy corns, but they called it Harvest Batman because it does sound cooler than, the candy corn Batman. The Black Lanterns were powered by the emptiness of space representing death, but the White Lanterns are powered by life itself. I won't go too deep into explaining Black Lanterns and White Lanterns. You can do your own research there, but I do think that the White Lantern Batman is one of the coolest repaints to date. The little lines they did on the gloves and the boots make it look like it's a new mold, but it's not. It's just lines that they added there. I really like the metallic silver paint contrasting with the White Lantern logo in the middle. He's another one that really stands out amongst all the other Batmans, and is a great addition for fans of the comics. The Imposters, which were Batmans that were repainted with inspiration from some of his biggest foes, don't have any basis in movies, comics, or shows either, and some of them are kind of weak, some of them are kind of awesome, like this Killer Croc. I think he definitely is the best one out of all the Imposters, mainly because of the way they did those eyes and that mouth. And I even like the shades of green they used and the scales on the torso. They did a really good job with this guy. I'd be curious to see if it's the same designer that did all the Imposters, or if it was different Funko designers, or what, because this one is really cool. And he stands out amongst the Imposters, which is hard to do, which makes him stand out a lot more with all the other Batmans. The top three was really hard to pick because I think all three of them are just wacky and wild and great ideas for repaints. And the only reason I didn't put this Rainbow Batman at number 1 or 2 is because I actually have this one, and when you look at the top of the head, the stripes don't exactly line up. But when it's in the package, it still looks perfect and awesome. This is from the same storyline as that pink Batman I talked about earlier, except for at the very end, Batman combines all his suits and becomes Rainbow Batman. It's gotta be one of the silliest ones, to be honest. Like, can you imagine actually seeing in a movie Batman jumping out with like a rainbow colored bat suit? Everybody would just start laughing, no matter what the reason. But yeah, just when you think they couldn't have come out with any more Batman repaints, they come out with this guy. And it was instantly a must-have for me. I'm glad I was able to get it. And he's one of my favorite ones in my collection. Definitely, out of all the Batman repaints, and I think of every Batman costume in the comics ever, Zebra Batman has got to be the silliest one. And yeah, this is actually based on the comics. Of course, one from like the 1960s, and there was a bad guy named Zebra Man or something that had like these magnetic powers, and somehow Batman gets zapped by the same thing, and he turns zebra as well. It's really goofy, but I think the goofiest bat suits are the ones that translate the best over into pop form, because pop forms are goofy, you know what I mean? They're kind of silly toys. And not only does this guy stand out with the Batmans, this guy stands out amongst all the pops. The one thing that really annoys me about this guy though is that he's in a 2-pack with a very boring Batman. I really wish Funko just would have packaged Zebra Batman by himself, because now I can't display him with my other Batmans because I'm an inbox collector and they don't fit right. And it bugs the hell out of me. But I still think that this Zebra version is one of the coolest ones for how wacky and eye-catching it is. And the number one in my opinion is the Golden Midas Batman. I don't think a lot of you guys saw that one coming, but I do think that in hand, if you have a good one, because a lot of these did have sloppy paint, but if you're able to find a good one, in hand, this guy looks really good. Funko picked out some really excellent gold paint, and they didn't just make it all gold. You do have the flesh color in there, the white and the black to kind of break it up a bit. But this guy does look very nice in person if you're ever lucky enough to see one in person. But like I said earlier, when I was hunting for this guy, some of them did have these brushstroke touch-ups on the head with gold paint that didn't match very well with the original gold paint, and it looked awful. But if you looked hard enough, you could find a perfect one. And there's still a lot of these guys on eBay, and the sellers aren't asking very much for him. But definitely, if you do try to go buy this guy, ask if those pictures are of the item you're actually going to get. Make sure they're clear, really inspect it to make sure it doesn't have those brushstrokes, because the brushstrokes do ruin this pop. Make sure you're buying a pristine one, because it is worth it and it looks really good. And of course, gold is going to be number one. Alright guys, that was the top 10 Batman Funko Pop repaints. Let me know in the comments below whether you agree or disagree, which ones of these pops you think shouldn't have been on the list, which ones you think should have, what your favorite Batman repaint is overall, if you have any of these, what your experience hunting them was. I'd also like to say thank you to my patrons that voted for this list. If you're a patron of mine, you get to vote on which top 10 I do next, and I'll have another poll up shortly. Alright guys, thanks for watching and take it easy.